So there is a famous Steve Jobs quote: great things in business are never done by one person, they are done by a team of people. So today's session will be presented by following team members who handle the complete ownership of 6200 switch series. So let me introduce my team here. So before, let me start with myself. I am Shobna, technical marketing engineer for Aruba campus switching. So we have Destiny from product management team and Ryan from product marketing team. So here is the agenda for today's session. So we'll be covering the CX product overview, walkthrough of our CX 6200 product portfolio, and next is the use cases enabled in 2023. So what are the new use cases enabled in 6200 switch series in this year? So at the end, AOS CX 1013 release highlights. So explaining the features introduced in 1013 release, mainly for the 6200 switch series. So kindly stay focused. So let me hand over to Ryan for the product overview, and Destiny will be following after Ryan. So over to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Shobana, and welcome, folks, and thanks for joining the call today. My name is Rayan Fakhro, Global Product Marketing for Campus Switching. Here you'll see a quick look at our CX switching portfolio with access switches on the bottom corner, ag and core toward the center, and data center top of rack along with spine and leaf switches at the top end. The entire end-to-end portfolio uses a single operating system, so everything works well together and the operating experience is consistent across the line. Our focus today is the CX 6200 switch series, highlighted on the page. This is an access switch. It's a light layer 3, and from a performance standpoint, it's a cut above our layer 2 CX 6000 and 6100 entry-level models. Now, before we dive into the Switch series itself, we often have new partners on these kinds of trainings. So I want to briefly speak to a few high-level benefits of the CX switching portfolio before we move on to the more technical capabilities that you're all here to hear about. If you are new to the CX switching portfolio, want you to know that our portfolio is designed to deliver intelligent, unified, and automated operations with a focus on streamlining the operator experience, reducing manual effort, making IT workflows simpler with better and faster troubleshooting. Our switches are also well known for their resiliency, their programmability, and end-to-end security, along with flexible management options that include web UI, industry standards CLI, as well as cloud and on-prem unified management for your infrastructure. So this isn't a business update, it's a technical update, so I will leave the business speak there and move on to the next slide. And this here is really about the strength of our infrastructure offering in switching and wireless, and our focus on empowering the network operator with capabilities designed to fit where they're deployed are some of the reasons why we continue to see industry analyst recognition as leaders within enterprise networking. But unlike some of our competitors, we work closely with our channel partners and our technical partners to serve customers of all sizes, not only in EMEA, but also globally. And I always like to share that our recognition in the industry and our success in the enterprise market is owed in no small part to partners like yourselves. So that's, here we've been recognized for the 17th time in the Leaders Quadrant. And I'd like to, share that and move more into the CX 6200 series itself. On the next slide, please. Okay, and as I was saying earlier, the CX 6200 switch series is a light layer 3 access switch series. These are stackable switches that come in fixed and modular options that are designed to scale in port density and PoE power, connecting high performance devices at the campus and branch access edge. And this series marks the sweet spot in the CX portfolio where performance meets enhanced capabilities like network analytics engine and dynamic segmentation, which really are one of the reasons why this is a highly appealing market offer. And over the past year, CX 6200 grew from 5 to now 16 fixed and modular switches, adding lower throughput density, 1 gig stackable options, and introducing new 10 gig switches with modular fans and power supplies. But to walk you through the particulars, I'd like to now pass the mic over to Destiny on the next slide.
Which is, as Rayan had indicated. And as he also indicated, this is really, the sweet spot, the bread and butter of the portfolio. This is the entry point where you get a lot of the CX capabilities. So as we walk through this slide, I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the main things here. So the 6200M switches have modular power. So they have 2 power supplies in the back, so 2 power supply slots, as well as a modular fan, a couple modular fans as well for redundancy and power for redundancy. On the front panel, you have 4 SFP plus uplinks, so 4 10 gig uplinks, which have the capability of LRM on all 4 uplinks, as well as 2 of those are MACsec enabled. So we have MACsec 256 on there. So you can see them highlighted there. They are the gray highlighted ports there on the front panel. And we also have VSF stacking capability here on both the uplink ports as well as the fiber ports, VSF stacking. We have 1 gig VSF stacking on the copper downlinks and 1 and 10 gig stacking on the uplink ports here. Same thing for the 6200F. When we talk about VSF stacking capability, we have 1 gig VSF stacking via the downlink ports, as well as VSF stacking on the uplink ports. In the 6200F, the differences here, we have both 1 gig uplink ports as well as 10 gig uplink ports. And on the F switches, we have fixed internal power supplies, and we have PoE and non-PoE versions of that. And with the PoE switches, we have 370 watts of PoE budget and 740 watts of PoE budget. So those are, at a high level, the differences there. The other capability that we have is 8-unit VSF stacking. So 8 units, 8 members high. That's what we have there. On the front panel, we also have management ports. So we have RJ45 console port, as well as USB-C console ports. We have the out-of-band management port and the USB type A host port, as well as an additional adapter for Bluetooth capability with the CX mobile app. So that's what we have going on the front panel. And that's what we have at a high level in this series here. So next slide, please. In addition to that, we also have a compact switch in the 6200F switch series. This is really, it has an internal power supply. It has no fans, so it is completely fanless, which is used for deployment in places and environments that require little to no noise, and is really, so we see these deployed a lot in classrooms. We see these deployed in, office space, those sorts of things. And on the front panel, you have class 4 PoE capability. You have 2 ports of SCP plus uplinking, as well as 2 copper ports as well. And you have an overall PoE budget of 139 watts. And here you can also do VSF stacking with the 12 ports. And here you can only stack with other 12 port 6200Fs. And one of the things that I should highlight actually on the previous slide, if you go back there, is the VSF stacking capability. You actually can stack both the 6200F and the 6200Ms together. And that is one of the additional capabilities of this particular series. And so this at a high level shows, a little bit more of the technical details that, we have highlighted. And again, we have these base models of the 6200F. We also have TAA versions of each of these models as well for customers that actually require TAA. And we have, our basic switching capacity here. We also have 24 port, 48 port flavors, as well as one with both 1 gig and 10 gig uplinks. And we have class 4 PoE power here. So that is PoE power of 30 watts per port, up to 30 watts per port. And depending on the model, as you can see here in the description of the name, you have anywhere between 370 watts of PoE power budget or 740 watts of PoE power budget. Or in the case of the compact switch, you have 139 watts there. And so similarly on the 6200M, again, here you have 2 power supply slots in the back. You have fan tray redundancy as well in the back. You also have, similar switching capacity to the 6200F. We have both the base models here as well as TAA versions of each of these. And you have the capability on one of the models at the bottom. You can see the 36+12 SR5. You have the capability of having up to class 6 PoE power on the front panel, and that is PoE up to 60 watts per port support on that particular model. The other models, they are at class 4 PoE power budget, which is 30 watts per port. Okay. And again, on the front panel, you have, And again, on the front panel, you have the 4 uplink ports, all capable of LRM support, and you have 2 ports of MACsec support on the 2 of those uplinks as well. Here at a high level is the main differences that we see. So you have in your 6200F models, you have fixed SKUs with fixed internal power supplies. That's the main thing here. So you have fixed uplinks on the front panel, and you have a fixed internal power supply. So that power supply is internal. There's no option for redundancy here. Whereas with the 6200M models, you have both fixed uplinks as well as 2 power supply slots. And you also have modular fan capability here. Whereas with the F models, the fan is also internal and fixed. Okay. And then smart rate support. So smart rate support, as you can see here, there's no smart rate support in the 6200F at the moment. And with the 6200M, we do have that one model where we have 36 gig ports and 12 ports of 1, 2.5, and 5 gig. So those are 12 ports of smart rate on that particular model in the 6200M series. And LRM support. So 6200F does not support LRM or MACsec. And in the 6200M models, we have 4 ports of SAP Plus that support LRM. And of those 4 ports that support LRM, 2 of those also support MACsec 256. And we also have MACsec support 256 on all of the downlink ports. And this is certainly coming in one of the software releases as we move forward, but that's certainly in scope and in plan. And Shobana can go through the use cases on that at a later point in time. And as far as PoE, so 6200F, we have up to 30 watts of PoE per port on the front panel for any of the PoE models in the 6200F. So that is up to class 6 PoE support. And in the 6200M, we have PoE support up to class 6. So the base models all support class 4, which is up to 30 watts of PoE per port. And on that one model, we have up to class 6 PoE support. So that is up to 60 watts per port. Okay. And so, a lot of this is really, yes, we have a little bit of, slight differentiation here, but the main thing is that they can stack together. So you can have interstacking capability. You have stacking capability on both the fiber uplink ports as well as the downlink ports. And then as we move forward, we're also hoping to get VSF support on the smart rate ports of that one particular model as well. And just in general, I think the main thing to note as well is that they have the same performance and hardware capabilities and scale. And at the same time, we also have, slight differences in the hardware capabilities and functionalities of it in the 6200M. So, but they all have, the base capabilities and differentiation from the rest of the other series in the 6000, 6100, 6300, and
So next section will walk you through the use cases enabled in 2023. So in constant efforts to improve the customer satisfaction, we are enhancing our 6200 switch series with new use cases every software release. And here is the list of commendable use cases of 2023. So let me go from hardware to software capability in the list. First is SKUs with up to 1 gig uplinks. Next is ability to perform VSF stacking with 1 gig uplink and downlink ports. Next is LRM capability, smart rate SKU with high power PoE. In software side, we have Aruba Central Net Conductor support, secure access extension. So last but not least, the combination of hardware and software capability, that is MACsec capable ports. So here is the overview of the use cases. Let's understand the use cases one by one. So the CX6200 switch series is a next generation family of stackable access switches ideal for enterprise branch, offices, campuses, and SMB networks. Hence, they are rightly called as light layer 3 stackable access switcher. So we'll talk about SMBs mainly here. So after the pandemic, like we have seen most small and medium-sized enterprises, they are investing on their network infrastructures. So they still use 100M and 1 gig Ethernet switches as extended access switches. And these extended access switches need to be connected to the main access 6200 switches to enhance the network connection resiliency. So those small businesses can be classified differently and they have the unique needs based on their work. Like they want voice over traffic or the data traffic around only 100 Mbps to 1 gig. So they need a suitable access switch for meeting their demands and for growing their businesses. Hence, considering the need of these SMBs, we have introduced the 1 rack unit fixed 6200 models that support 24 or 48 port access ports of up to 1 gig with 4 built-in uplink ports up to 1 gig SFP ports. So these SKUs are the ones that support up to 1 gig uplinks, and 3 out of the 5 SKUs are class 4 PoE capable up to 30 watt PoE per port. So next comes the 1 gig VSF stacking capability. So as you all are aware, the Aruba VSF allows you to quickly grow your network using high performance front plan stacking. So it supports up to 8 switches or members in a stack with a mix of both fixed and then modular switches. So it can provide up to 384 downlink ports in case of 48 port 8 member switch. So that is the maximum number of ports that can be scaled using this VSF stacking. And you may comment what is new in this VSF capability in this release. So the focus here is we do support VSF stacking using 1 gig ports, uplink as well as the downlink ports for VSF connectivity. So it is a really great advantage for deployments running short of uplink ports for VSF connectivity. So now they can leverage the downlink ports for VSF formation as well. But if your deployment needs fast and non-blocking performance, then we would recommend for 10 gig uplinks for VSF stacking. So it depends upon your deployment need. You can either go for 1 gig VSF stacking or 10 gig VSF stacking. So next comes the 10 gig base LRM. So let's understand some overview about this LRM before we understand the need for bringing this LRM in our switching portfolio. So the 10 gig base LRM transceiver is a multi-mode transceiver developed to be installed in high speed and enterprise environments. So as the data rate increases, the multi-mode fibers and transceivers emerged as the optimal solution for short range transmissions. And these transceivers are the good choice for building unified and scalable networks and interconnect buildings which are a few hundred meters apart. With the latest trends in networking, so the network admins are looking to expand their network and upgrade to 10 Gbps. So this would mean like they need a better performance in the access layer and they wanted a better connectivity between the customer environment to the data center. So providing the customers with stable and super fast connection. So what is the major part here? So all these existing 1 Gbps connections where this OM1 multimode fibers were not capable of delivering the 10 Gbps speed demand. So this drove the development of the more and robust cost-effective optimal transceivers, which supports this 10 gigabits transmission speeds. And the customers would upgrade the existing 1 Gbps to 10 Gbps connections. So this transceivers allow for upgrade to 10 Gbps without making a change in the cabling infrastructure in the customer. So now we'll come to the main question. Why are we doing this 10 gig LRM in our switching? So there are enterprise customers as well as the higher education customers still using the OM1 and OM2 fibers. So customers who are still using this low quality multimode fiber OM1 and OM2 MMF, they need to reuse the cable now for the 10 gig, and it can be done only with the 10 gig LRM technology. Hence, we introduce the support of LRM in our switches. So all the modular switches of 6200 series of switches will have the LRM capability in their 4 uplink ports. So next comes the smart rate ports. So as you all see, there is an increase in IoT devices on our campus networks, and it is expected to grow further. So there is a need of a mix of smart rate and 1 Gbps ports. So it represents the best the customer is needing it today. So there can be a debate like the average need for smart rate ports in a campus environment could be around only 30%. So why still we need the smart rate capability? So the major objective here is designing a highly available wireless networks that calls for distributing the APs across the stackable switches. So these APs will remain in the same wiring cabinet as our switches, and we need to increase the network availability and present the flexible solution to customers for the wireless deployment. So with the smart rate configuration enabled, the AP is capable of negotiating more than 1 Gbps of speed link with the smart rate capable switch. So where there is a high density need for smart rate port is required, so opting for such smart rate SKU is really recommended. So that is the need for us to go with this 6200 modular SKU R8Q 71A or its TA variant R8V12A. So this switch contains 36 1 gig ports and 12 smart rate ports supporting up to 5 gig. So it allows customers to achieve the combination of smart rate 1 gig and then the fiber ports. So next comes the high power PoE need. So let's understand the background behind it. So designing a network that is ready to support the growth of IoT devices and then the latest wireless technologies is still a challenge. So the latest high performance wireless access points will require more than 30 watt of PoE power to function. And then the industry standard IEEE 802.3BT high power PoE support class 6, and it provides up to 60 watt to support the latest IoT devices and then the APs. So to support these PoE devices, we have added the new 6200 modular switch R8Q71A and its TA variant R8V12A. So that can deliver up to 60 watt PoE per port with total PoE power of 1440 watt. And apart from the high PoE power capability, so these 6200 SKUs also support two of the main PoE enhancements like always on PoE and then the quick PoE enhancements. So let me share some limelight on those features. You can later refer our user guides for the details about these features. So what is always on PoE? So always on PoE is a feature that provides the ability to the switch to continue to provide power across a software reboot. And next enhancement is the quick PoE. So the quick PoE, it will have the ability to supply PoE power to the power devices, that is PDs, as soon as the switch is plugged into the AC power. So these are really a game changer for the PoE switches, and they are now available for our 6200 switches as well. Next comes the software capability, Aruba Central Net Conductor. So let me share an overview about this Aruba Central Net Conductor. So Aruba Central Net Conductor, it's a full stack solution for network and security orchestration. More than just a fabric manager, at a high level, we can position it as an evaluation of dynamic segmentation to provide more flexibility for customers that want the key features of user-based tunneling with Aruba gateways, but not the centralized limitations of the scale. So with the central net conductor, the orchestration provides a distributed model, providing overlay-based automation with BGP, EVPN, VXLAN, or the static VXLAN. So the static VXLAN capability has been newly introduced in 6200. We'll be seeing in the next slide. So as the net conductor integrates with Aruba gateways, Aruba user-based tunneling, wireless LAN, and then the SD-WAN. So it is like it covers the branch to the campus model for WAN or wireless LAN and wired solutions with this integration capabilities. And it also provides tight integration with the user rules to provide micro and macro segmentation. So with that, there is one of the key benefits of this Aruba net conductor. So it is the simplification of delivering even the complex solution at a scale like an overlay solution, cutting out the manual generation of CLIs, providing validated configurations, and very simply and quickly. And apart from that, equally important, providing role-based policies with the granular micro and macro segmentation supported by using the group-based policies. So that is the major key benefit of the Aruba Central Net Conductor. So one recent addition to the entire 6200 switch family is the Aruba Central Net Conductor support. So this net conductor support will be available for all the SKUs of our 6200. So as we saw, the Aruba Central Net Conductor is a full stack solution for network and security orchestration. So now it's easily achievable using static VXLAN overlay network to address the limitations of traditional VLANs. So mainly for the purpose of Aruba Central Net Conductor, we brought in the static VXLAN support for the 6200 switch family. So how do we achieve it? So it is achieved using data plane-based rule propagation and role-based policy enforcement with static VXLAN GBP tunnels to the edge and then the aggregation switches. So there will be EVPN-based VXLAN GBP tunnels between the aggregation to the core, and there will be static VXLAN GBP tunnels between the 6200s to the main aggregation or the access switches. So 6200 will be acting as a extended edge switches here. So where does this use case fits in? So this is mainly used in guest hotel rooms or car parkings. This is one of the major advantages of 6200 in the recent software releases. So next is the secure access extension use case. So before I start the secure access extension, so let me take a minute to showcase the recent customer wins of 6200 switch series in the access layer. So these are the customer wins in 2023. So these customers believe that HPE Aruba networking solution will provide a future-proof and then scalable approach that empowers innovation and growth for their organizations while significantly lowering the total cost of ownership. So we would really like to thank the customers for their belief in our CX switches. So these customers are planning to deploy the CX switches 6200 series in their access layer. So we were talking about the secure access extension. So before that, let's hear about the placement of the 6200 switches in an enterprise network. So this is a small and then the large campus. So both in the small and large campus environments, we usually use the 6200 access switches to connect the endpoints like phones, APs, printers, and multiple other endpoints. So they are really needed for deployments where there are port ranges from 10 Mbps to 1 gig. So these 6200 switches are ideal for branch campus access layer use cases. So what is the new addition in this deployment? So there comes the 6200 12-port extended access switches to this product placements. So we call them as extended mini access switches as they connect to the main access 6200 or 6300 switches. So these access switches also will try to provide L2 connectivity to the endpoints connected to them. So let's hear about the benefit of these 12-port mini access switches and why do we call them as a secure access extension. The secure access extension use case. So let's hear about some history about why we started calling this as a secure access extension. So this new use case is created after understanding the requirement of UKSH, one of the largest hospital chain in Germany. So there are approximately 40,000 active network devices in their environment. And these devices need to be connected to the 24 or 48 port access switches for dynamic segmentation. But cable extension became a real challenge for them. Like apart from the main building, there were extended medical rooms in their deployment having around 10 to 12 devices. So these extended rooms are unmanaged environment. So there was a concern of potential vulnerability as well. So to solve such challenges, this secure access extension will be a game changer. So how we can achieve it? So we can use our 12-port 6200 switches as extended access switches, and they can securely onboard using security features like .1x, using ETLS authentication, using the inbuilt TPM certificate, or if you wanted a less security level, then you can go for MAC authentication. Or if you wanted a device-based authentication, we can go with the device profile. So with respect to .1x and MAC authentication, they can be with only physical interfaces, but with device profile, they can be over the lag interfaces. That is a new feature came in 10.13 release. So what this use case will help us? So it will help in secure scaling of the 24 and then the 48 port access switches. So without much need for the cable extensions, we can easily deploy the 12-port mini switches to the main access switches and scale the 24 and 48 port access switches. Next, we could extend the Aruba's campus innovation of role-based segmentation, that is dynamic segmentation. So both the main access switch and then the mini external access switches are capable of doing dynamic segmentation for the IoT and then the OT traffic. And they can protect against unauthorized switches gaining the network access. As these are extended spaces and they will be in a hostile environment, so we never know, they could be even a hub entering the switch and then gaining the access. For that purpose, only with security we can guard our environment. Like we cannot make unprotected switches gain access to the network. So this use case is highly recommended for unmanaged extended spaces in hospitals, cruises, and then the manufacturing industries. So next comes the MACsec capable ports. So let's understand the overview of MACsec before we look into the MACsec capable ports in the 6200 switches. So as we all know, the MACsec works in data link layer. So it provides L2 hop by hop encryption on point-to-point Ethernet links. So one of the main use case of MACsec is that it provides layer 2 security, allowing it to safeguard the network communication against a range of attacks like denial of service attack, intrusion, man-in-the-middle attack, and eavesdropping. So these attacks exploit the layer 2 vulnerabilities, and they often cannot be detected or prevented by higher layer security protocols. So in this way, the MACsec provides the foundational security on which the entire network security architecture can be built. So MACsec security is really needed in an enterprise access network. So how does MACsec achieve it? So all the Ethernet frames are encrypted using strong encryption algorithms. So it appends a 16-byte MACsec header and integrated check value to help in this process. That's how MACsec will able to encrypt the data that traverses over the MACsec links. So let's understand the capability of MACsec in our CX switches. So the best and the most secure solution for protecting against vulnerability in the access edge is to identify what is the intelligence that switches can provide in the network. So we would first start with IEEE 802.1x that can provide port-based network access control using authentication. But whether the authentication alone will guarantee the confidentiality and integrity of data on the network, then the answer is no. So only MACsec can provide the additional needed protection, like whether enabling the data confidentiality, authenticity, or the integrity on the network. So those can be possible only with the MACsec. Hence, there is always a growing need for MACsec in the access layer. So for that purpose, even our 6200 modular switches now support MACsec. So they support both switch-to-switch MACsec or the switch-to-host MACsec. So this table explains the list of ports that support the MACsec in our 6200 modular switches. So all the SKUs support MACsec in two uplink ports, and then the smart rate SKU. It supports additionally in the downlink ports 37 to 48 as well. So first, let's understand the use case of switch-to-switch MACsec link. So it protects the access layer to the aggregation layer and aggregation layer to the code layer. So in this example, consider if you have three sites like site A, site B, and site C. So how do we protect the connectivity between these sites? So the connectivity could be potentially vulnerable since MACsec is really needed in such kind of connectivity between different sites. And next comes the switch to host MACsec. So like considering the importance of MACsec, we started seeing like many end devices like access cameras, workstations. So they either using the native capability of their software or using the applications like Cisco AnyConnect, they started supporting MACsec capability as well. So hence, switch to host MACsec can be the first level of encryption we can start for protecting our access network. And then when the data traverses between the switches, we can use the switch to switch MACsec. So this is the overall picture of the MACsec portfolio for our CX6200 switch series. So this is a summary slide for an overall picture of our 6200 use cases that got enabled in 2023. So I have listed the list of SKUs that supports the 1 gig uplink ports. The 1 gig VSF capability is supported in all 6200 series of switches. LRM is in all the modular series of switches. We do have one smart rate SKU. And as I said earlier, MACsec capability, all the modular SKUs to SFP plus uplink port supports MACsec. And there is smart rate SKU that supports downlink ports as well. And we could achieve secure access extension using our combination of 24-48 port 600 series of switches with the 12 gig switch. And Aruba Central Net Conductor, it's supported on all the SKUs of 1600 series of switches. Last but not least, the high power PoE, we do have a SKU with up to 60 watt class 6 PoE support. So next comes the AOS CX 10.13 release highlights section. So we have recently published our AOS CX 10.13 release. It is a LSR release, that is a long supporting release with major features in multiple areas. So I would like to thank my switching organization for the tremendous efforts in publishing this release. So let me share the brief highlights of the features that are supported for the 6200 platform. So this release highlight slide covers mainly the 6200 platform. So you can refer the features introduced for other platforms in the external user guides. So first comes the security. So with respect to security, we have the following features introduced. Device profile overlap, like previously we had device profile supported for only physical interfaces. So now it's been enhanced with LAC to support dual port APs and the secure access extension use case, which we discussed before. And next comes the colorless port for dual port APs. So previously we had some constraints in enabling the dual port APs in a colorless port deployment. Now that has also been overcome. Next comes the NAS filter rule enhancement for L4 port ranges. So this is the support needed for finance verticals where they usually deploy massive amount of access control entries. That is, we also call as filter rules. So now we have support for L4 port ranges in them. And we are also performed the certification process for NDCPP and DODN for MACsec. So that has also been part of this release. And we do have Cisco ISC adaptive network control interop. So we still see customers who are using Cisco ISC as their NAC. Hence, to support the interop, we have supported Cisco VSAs for radius dynamic authorization as part of this feature. So next comes the usability. So first is auto-enable RPST using during the VLAN creation. So previously, when RPST, the user creates and enables in a switch, so only explicitly they have to go to the VLAN and enable the RPST. So with this 1013 release, we have a single CLI command that enables or disables the RPST on the VLANs either that are already created or the new VLANs that will be created will be enabled with RPST. So there is no need for going to each VLAN interfaces and enabling them manually. And we need visibility into the MAC addresses moving across switch ports. So we wanted to know which MAC address is being moving frequently in our switches, so that can be easily viewable using this MAC move show command. And there comes the QoS rate limiting via percentage. Previously, we were able to do only with packets per second or kbps. Now we could achieve it using percentage also based on the link speed. And last, we have the luxury to select the source interface for SSH and SFTP. So next comes the manageability enhancement. So mainly it covers the SNMP area. So the first comes the support for SNMP v3, SHA-256 and AES-256 support for securing the SNMP v3. Next, there will be a MIP to view the firmware stored in the flash. So these are based on the customer required for the particular NMS, and ability to write the chassis locator LED, and read the average instantaneous system power consumption of the switch. And last but not least, we have this VSF monitoring. So we could easily achieve the VSF failure detection using this read MIP. So next comes the telemetry. So telemetry involves both the internal and external analyzers. So external is mainly Aruba Central. So here are the telemetry features supported from 10.13 release. First is global client IP tracker, and then the device fingerprinting enablement. So previously these features are enabled per VLAN and port only. So now we will have a global CLI knob to control the enablement of these features. So even when a new VLAN or a port is getting added, they can be easily enabled with these telemetry features like CIPT and DFP. So next comes the Aruba Central Packet Capturing enablement. So we will have the option in Central to support the packet capturing for CX switches for the client connected ports for troubleshooting any issues with respect to a specific client. So next comes client onboarding failure and latency. So it involves L2 latency and failure status. So it can be with or without security as well. And also the L3 latency and failure for the DHCP clients. So overall picture of the client onboarding failure and latency we can view using this feature. So next comes the radius server IP inclusion in the client auth events. So this is also an enhancement request for the central telemetry. So we would be able to identify from which radius server the client has authenticated or debug any issues with respect to client and server communication. So next comes the optimizations. So optimization is like a never-ending story. So we will try our best to optimize the memory and performance of our CX switches every release. So with respect to that, here are the new features. So with respect to multicast, we have configurable courier wait timer and then IGMP star comma G programming. So both these features will help in reducing the times for the election of the courier and also the quicker access to the multicast streams. So next comes the VRRP support for IPv6 link local. So mainly this feature is for keeping the things simple. Like we wanted the ability to configure the same IPv6 link local addresses for multiple VRRP VLAN interfaces. Next comes the OSPF distribute list. So we will have the functionality to filter routes from entering the routing table. And the majorly we have PIM bidirectional support. So with the PIM bidirectional support, PIM bidirectional, it creates multicast trees between the sources and receivers without using source specific states. So it will help in better scalability and it will reduce the resource consumption, also the overhead in our switch performance. So next comes the memory footprint reduction. So it is like a internal enhancement to reduce the memory consumption by decoupling the way REST and then the CLI works. And the other optimization feature is we will do span the daemons based on the features enabled. So only the feature is enabled, then corresponding daemon will span, and thereby it will optimize the memory and then the performance of the switches. So unnecessarily the daemons will not be starting. Only when there is the configuration enabled, the daemon will be started. And next comes the VXLAN overlay support. So we do have now TechX Plus packets that can be sent over the VXLAN overlay tunnel, both IPv4 and IPv6 servers in IPv4 and IPv6 overlay, and also the IPv4 and IPv6 underlay. So point to be noted here is our 1600 series of switches will support static VXLAN tunnels. Next is the same syslog support with both V4 and V6 servers in V4 and V6 overlays and underlays. Next is the NTP V6 support. So V4 was already supported. V6 is part of this release. So with that, we have come to the end of this partner webinar session. So here is the resources tab for you. So all of our resources are available in public content. Like we have our own ABC networking videos, that is ADET's broadcasting channel, where we will post our 1013 videos. It will be available from next year. And then for the features and then scale support matrix, it will be part of feature navigator. And for reference to the architectures, you can refer the validated solution guide. That is also external content available for our customers and the partners. And last, we have the documentation portal. So all the 1013 information will be part of 1013 user guides. So kindly refer them and then deploy these features in your customer environments.